Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, today I have a lot of tips and tricks for you. So if you're an intermediate, this is going to apply to you. You should be doing these things. Start collecting up your textures and put them away in your little book. If you are a beginner, these might be a little bit too advanced and too much for you. It's okay. You do it the way you're comfortable with and build up to this. And my emerging intermediates, the ones who are sitting on the border, you got to try this. So here's my beginning picture, and I'm going to point some things out. We have a blend, and beginners, you should be doing blends. There's no real light source coming in, just a little hint, a little dot here, a little bit over here, and you have a little bit under there. This is where you're supposed to be at this point. And if your picture's starting to look like this, that's a good thing. On the bottom, I have some beginner pleats. They're not blended out. They're just kind of there, but they're emerging. And if this is what your picture turns out to be, that's really good. Today, we're going to push it a little further. Now, this is Sherry Baldy's Josephina. And you can find it in her Etsy shop, and it's really cheap. It's like $2 for the download. If you want to follow along with me on this picture, it would be helpful to you. I had one subscriber that questioned this, and I'm going to show you a little perspective trick that will change the entire picture. Right now, with the way she's standing, the perspective is very low. Now, perspective has to do with the horizon line, where the sky meets the earth. Now, you see how the hat is going up, and that you cannot see over the hat. There's no turning it around. I don't know if Sherry Baldy forgot to put the line, or this is exactly what she was expecting, but there's a missing line in there. And you see how the hat goes really high up? You'd have to be down on her level and kind of looking up for you not to be able to see any part of her hat, which is kind of odd because she's a child, and an adult would have what we call a bird's eye view of her, and that's looking more down upon her. So if this was a photograph, somebody was taking this photograph, they would have had to be way down on the ground looking directly in and up at her eye, especially since it would be hard. She's wearing an oversized hat. Her face is half covered. So you'd really have to be down and getting in there. So this is why I suspect maybe Sherry had forgotten to put this line in, but it's cute both ways. And it's just a line here. Okay, now look at how that looks. We've just stood up as far as where we took this picture. Her eye looks a little brighter because it's lifted up. Her, the lighting is now coming down upon her instead of kind of awkwardly coming up on her. Because the way this was arched before, it was odd. And that's why I just had this little weird feeling that Sherry forgot to put a line. But either way, she's cute. I wanted to show you what the hat would look like if it was kind of colored in, but I did this really quickly. It's by no means, like, finished. I would still have to be working on the shading. I think there's only, like, 2 layers on this, and it was done really quick like this. So, as you can see, I cut off the hat, shrunk it down more to the child's size, and it gives you a perspective on it. Now, where this is tricky is this line is not matching the angle of this line, and that's why, because I'm adding it in. If I was going to seriously do this picture and I was making this like that, I would have to cut a little bit of this off. Just a little touch. Now, over here, if this was all gone, See how much better that looks? Now you have exactly what it's supposed to be. You have a nice flat top. Nothing is odd. The child is looking up, and it would look even better if I had the brim and her completely developed. So that is another thing that you could do with this picture, and it would help you that you don't have to add so much space. It breaks up your eye. So that's the first thing I wanted to show. Okay, so I'm going to work on this paper, and we're going to be learning how to do some quick pleats. I'm going to start off with the reference photo. Now you can see I've colored in on the reference photo a little bit. This was originally in color, and I just put it into PicMonkey, and I switched it over to black and white because it's easier to see. So what I wanted to do was isolate the shapes of where the pleats or the folds in this dress were. And it's very hard to see it when you've got light shining on like color, and it definitely shows up way better if you play with the contrast. So here you see a bunch of different shapes. You've got like this little triangle, you've got a cut off, you have a long one, it's square with a thing. Here's one going down and it kind of triangles at the bottom. So I have a whole bunch of shapes on here that I can use as a reference and guide myself when I'm doing something that I can't do like a one-on-one. Like this picture isn't really real, so I can't really copy an exact match of the dress. That would be hyperrealism, and you can't really do that with this. So what I'm doing is just using the reference picture. I don't even call it a reference picture per se. It's just like an idea picture that I can use to kind of gauge what I'm doing. And no matter what, I always have one of these pictures in front of me. I just go that little extra step because having it there and being able to rely on, I call it like an inspiration picture. I'm going to use it to build on. So if you look at this picture and you look at her dress, it's not, of course, a match, but it'll do. If you take just like this little part and then look at her little, it kind of has the same shape. So now I'm going to go over to my picture. So I'm going to have to like wing it, but I'm going to use some of the shapes that I found in the other dress. So for now, I'm going to ignore this. Okay? Pretend it's not even there. Later on, we're going to do something to kind of disguise it. And I'm going to color some of those shapes that I see in the picture. Now, we have one down here that's kind of square, and it goes kind of like that. And I've got a large one that triangles like that. And I'm using 10% cool gray and just getting a little color difference going in it. Nothing formal, nothing I'm thinking about that it has to be a certain way. It's very random. Okay. Got enough on my page just to be able to demo it for you. Okay. These are going to be where my pleats are going to be. Or not so much pleats because it's not that random. It's where the little folds on her dress are going to hit. Now, drawing clothing is difficult. It's really not so much a beginner skill, but if you could start doing it and just practicing it, it helps later on when you really need to be able to render it. Okay, I got out of the back of the page that I was using. I didn't want to waste any more paper. Don't mind that. I was prepping my gel pens. So here we have an exaggeration on the pleat, okay? Well, this is the fold or the dent, whatever that's in there. It's going to have 3 parts. Every fold, every little ripple in a dress is going to have these 3 parts. This is your base. This is the fade, okay? So I'm going to have, let me get out my 90%. Okay, we're going to have the fade. On one side, you're going to have the shadow. Do it very lightly, and that fades into the fade. That's why I call it the fade. And then you're going to have the highlight. A highlight is always accompanied by the shadow, because what it is it's going up. The shadow, a highlight is hitting the top, and then as it folds slightly down, that's when you're going to get the shadow. So it's going to have 3 parts, and once I get a little bit more base color on here, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So we have kind of a fold going that way. So we have fade, shadow, highlight. The next thing on here going in the opposite direction would be shadow into fade. Then, of course, you blend it all out. Now, the thing on, when you're not making a complete pleat, where it's a hard fold, this is where the difference comes with your soft lines versus your hard lines. This is a soft line. It's a complete blend. It's 3 different areas, really. I'm going to lighten my fade. This is, of course, very quick. Of course, if I was doing it for real, I'd be going like this, but now, if you want a harder pleat, you would make it a harder shadow. So if I do it this dark, per se, it would be folding, and this is sort of waving. And then you take your white. Pleats and fabric have to be very blended. This is the point where I would say using a chemical, whichever one you choose, mineral spirits, Gamsol. It's almost a must when doing clothing. And I just keep building it up over and over again. It begins to look like that. And as you can see on here, I'm working with the blues, so let me get out my blues. And my base color is slate. I'm using violet blue as dark, and then I have my white. I'm also putting in some indigo in there also. This is a well-worked piece, so I have my shapes going in different ways. And I'm working on a fade here. And you can see this one has sort of a triangular shape. See, it's easier with a reference picture. I mean, really, if I had one and I can duplicate it one by one. And my shadow is here, my highlight is here on this one. Just keep blending it out, and it's again over here. Now, some of these lines look a little bit awkward because I actually have those black marks that I'm just kind of pretending don't exist and coloring over them. I would have been happy if that was just completely open, but I didn't draw the picture. Sherry Baldy did. I love her stuff. I'm like addicted to her website. I could just keep downloading and downloading. I babysit for my goddaughter, and she's always in my books. And she loves Sherry Baldy now. So as you can see, you just keep on keeping on until you're done. And over here, like this one hasn't even been worked on already. I have really no choice, but this has to be the shadow. So over here, I would have a fade. And not much of a choice. I've got a highlight. Doing my best to hide that black line so that my dress looks smooth. And let's see. My shade is going to go on this side because I'm doing a hard fold over there. Let that roll a little bit up and over. Get this blended. Now, on top of this, this is a really spread out one. You could put a little bit more of something else to break up the interest, because even a pleat would have some sort of divot in the material. Okay, now I have a big one over here that definitely needs to be broken up. Let me just fade into that a little bit more. So for this, I'm just doing a series of different shapes. And you can see it's getting more and more. The darker the area, the more it goes in. The lighter the area, the more it comes out. Let's get a... where's my indigo? Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of indigo going in here. Be some indigo in here. Okay, so that's what's going to keep me busy today, is just working on the different ways that the dress is folding. Now you could see over here, I darkened this area over here because I want to give it going around. So I really want to put this side of her, like you could see it with the hat. It kind of matches up with the fact that the light is coming in from this direction, and she's kind of standing in the shadow with this side of her head. So I'm putting her in the shadows. I've added in a little bit of gray over there. So that is how I'm working on the dress. Now, the bottom. Here is my reference picture, or my inspiration picture. See how there is a little bit of texture down here? It's like simulation lace. Well, that's what I'm working on here. And how did I do that? Well, it's not that hard. I'm going to take a base color, which is going to be my 10% gray. I'm going to just do a little area over here. So I've got a base. And I'm doing this, of course, fast. It should be way slower, way smoother. Okay. The next step is a medium gray, and that's a 50%. So I'm going to put in a little bit of a triangle here to make it look like a divot. I'm going to put in a shadow over here. Okay, so that's basically the bottom layers. Then I'm going to take my 90% and I'm going to do sort of like swirls. They're not dots, but it's like this. Very lightly on the top. And I'm swirling it all over the place. My hand is very loose. It's a very light touch. You do not want to go dark on this. Okay? When you're done with that, you're going to take your white. And I'm going to blur it. Not enough to blend the line completely out, but just enough to fuzz it. Then I'm going to go back with my 90% and I'm going to do it again. This time a little bit less. And my pencil is a slightly heavier. You're working with a point, so you want the same thickness, but you want a darker line. Okay, and then you're going to go back with your pencil, your white, and you're going to blur it. Don't completely blend it, just a blur. That's going to make depth. Okay, and then I'm going to go back with my 90%. And this time, with a heavier hand, I'm going to make smaller little squiggles. Okay, you can blur them out a little bit, not too much. You want to keep basically the shape. Then I'm going to go in with my paint pen. I'm using Triton brand. This is brand new to me. I'm going to do a review on it, but this is... I just got this set yesterday. I'm just trying it. And I've already tested it a couple of times and on paper, and I like the results. But of course, until you see it in action, and the first time you use a color, you always shake really well. And then on a scrap, the tips are going to be white. On a scrap, you're going to bounce a couple of times until you get like a bead. And you can feel it when that cap opens up. And then just test it. Okay, that's running perfect. Can you see that? That's exactly what I want to see. Nice thin line. Very smooth. It's flowing nicely. This set really impressed me. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same hand motion with this. And I'm going to add in some paint pen. Tap it down. Work in small little groups. You don't want to work in big groups because it dries really quickly. All the brands' paint pens do. And tap. Tap, tap, tap. Wait a few minutes. Go back with your cool gray, and you might go over some of the squiggles, over the white. Go back to your paint pen. Tap it down. And then I do a final go over with a little bit of mineral spirit. Just to take the edges off. So, that's how I get that texture. It becomes looking like this. And what I did after that was I kind of combined the two processes. So I'm doing the pleats and I'm doing the stippling in here. And you can see that I'm still working on it. And I would just get my fade. Okay, I got my 90%, which is fine. And I'm making sure I have highlights, shadows, fades, and texture. For your intermediates, this is where you're supposed to be. For your beginners, don't panic, you will get there. Go in with my white in some areas. Get my highlights going a little bit brighter. Whatever you remove, you add back your texture. And you keep bouncing back and forth. brighter. This is the reason why I always have streaks of paint pen on my hand. I don't think a day goes by all right. So this is going to take me several more hours to complete. I will show you the completed picture tomorrow if I get it done. Now, to do the bottom, I'm going to use my darkest gray, and I'm going to just do a little bit of a fade in the upper area. What I'm trying to do is get rid of that dress line, although this is a hard line, the edge of the dress, because this is a different structure than this. This is the back of it. This is the front of it. This is a different structure. So I would have a harder line, but I don't want it to be so hard that it like kind of ruins the picture and brings it back to that coloring book look. Remember, we're trying to get away from the coloring book appearance. Although we're using a coloring book page, that is our goal, to make it look a little bit more like original artwork. So that's how I do pleats, and that's how I do simulated lace that's shadowed. And you can see it's pretty comparable on what the photograph looks like and what the picture looks like. So I will see you guys tomorrow, and tomorrow is Tuesday. I'm going to do one more day on this dress because I want to show you some tricks on how to get hair that's coloring book and the look of coloring book out of your hair. And we'll finish up this picture tomorrow. And then on Wednesday is our tutorial on lemon yellow. So if you're working out of the CMW book, lemon yellow. And Thursday is, what did I have on Thursday? Oh, I have the final picture, the other picture to show you. And we'll finish up that one. So I will see you tomorrow. Take care.